Consider, if you will, the metamorphosis of a butterfly. The common misconception is that if we help the butterfly emerge from its cocoon, we are doing it a favor. But this seemingly kind intervention actually condemns the creature to a life of weakness, as it's precisely the struggle of breaking free that strengthens its wings for flight. This same principle applies to our youth today. In my observations throughout decades of work with individuals facing the most extreme circumstances, I've witnessed time and again that it's not the absence of challenges that shapes resilient characters, but rather the presence of meaningful ones. When we examine the lives of those who have achieved remarkable feats, we rarely find stories of comfort and ease. Instead, we discover tales of obstacles overcome, barriers shattered, and limitations transcended. Let me share with you an experience from my clinical practice. A young man, barely 18, came to me deeply discouraged about his life's direction. His parents, with the best intentions, had removed every obstacle from his path, anticipated every need, solved every problem, yet there he sat, feeling empty, purposeless, and worst of all, incapable. This is what I call the paradox of modern comfort. In our zealous attempt to protect our youth from hardship, we inadvertently rob them of the very experiences that would make them strong. The question before us is not whether young people should face challenges, but rather what kind of challenges will serve them best. Think of muscle development. Without resistance, there can be no growth. The same applies to character, resilience, and capability. When we shield our youth from difficulty, we deny them the very tools they need for future success. In my years of research and observation, I've noted that those who find meaning in their struggles are the ones who emerge strongest. It's not the challenge itself that transforms them, but rather their response to it, their interpretation of it, and most importantly, the meaning they derive from it. Consider the young person who faces academic difficulties. The modern tendency might be to lower standards, to make the path easier. But what message does this send? It tells them they are not capable of rising to the occasion. Instead, when we maintain high standards while providing support and guidance, we communicate our belief in their potential. This belief, this faith in their capabilities, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've observed countless times how young people rise to meet expectations when they're set high enough to be challenging yet achievable with effort. The key lies in creating what I call productive tension, that space between comfort and overwhelming difficulty where growth occurs. Let me tell you about another young person I encountered. She was part of a program that required her to complete a challenging community project. Initially, she doubted herself, felt overwhelmed by the responsibility. But as she progressed, facing and overcoming each obstacle, something remarkable happened. She didn't just complete the project. She discovered capabilities within herself she never knew existed. This is the gift of meaningful challenges. They reveal to us who we truly are and who we can become. The crucial element here is the word meaningful. Not all challenges are created equal. Arbitrary difficulties or purposeless hardships don't build character, they break spirit. The challenges our youth need are those that connect to something larger than themselves, that contribute to their understanding of their place in the world and their potential to impact it. Think of the young person learning to play a musical instrument, the countless hours of practice, the frustration of difficult passages, the temporary failures. All these challenges serve a purpose. They're not just learning music. They're developing persistence, attention to detail, the ability to overcome frustration, and the understanding that mastery requires dedication. In my extensive work with young people, I've observed that those who face and overcome meaningful challenges develop what I call adversity intelligence, the ability to face difficulties not with fear, but with curiosity and determination. This quality becomes invaluable in their future lives, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal growth. We must understand that protecting our youth from all discomfort is not an act of love, but an act of limitation. When we remove all obstacles from their path, we implicitly tell them we don't believe they're capable of overcoming them. This message, however unintended, becomes integrated into their self-concept, creating what I've observed to be a form of learned helplessness. Let me share an observation from my work with young adults. Those who have been consistently challenged, who have been allowed to fail and learn from their failures, display a remarkable resilience in the face of life's inevitable setbacks. They don't crumble when things don't go as planned. Instead, they draw upon their experiences to find solutions and maintain their forward momentum. The question then becomes, how do we create these meaningful challenges? First, we must understand that challenges should be proportional to capability. Just as a weightlifter doesn't begin with maximum weights, we shouldn't expect our youth to handle life's most difficult challenges immediately. Instead, we should create a progressive system of challenges that builds confidence and capability over time. In my research, I've identified several key components of meaningful challenges. They should be voluntary. Forced challenges often create resistance rather than growth. They should be achievable with effort, too easy, and they're meaningless, too difficult, and they're demoralizing. They should have clear connections to personal or societal benefit. Abstract challenges without purpose rarely inspire sustained effort. Consider the example of a young person undertaking a significant volunteer project. The challenges they face, organizing resources, managing time, dealing with setbacks, coordinating with others, these are real-world challenges that develop real-world capabilities. More importantly, they're challenges connected to a purpose larger than themselves, which adds the crucial element of meaning. I've observed that when young people engage in meaningful challenges, they develop what I call the challenge mindset, a perspective that views difficulties not as threats, but as opportunities for growth and learning. This mindset becomes a powerful tool for lifelong development and achievement. Let me share another insight from my work. The most effective challenges often involve some form of service to others. When young people are challenged to contribute to their communities, to solve real problems affecting real people, they develop not just practical skills, but also empathy, social responsibility, and a sense of their own capacity to make a difference in the world. This brings us to another crucial point: the role of mentorship in challenging situations. While young people need challenges, they also need guidance, not to solve their problems for them, but to help them develop the tools and perspectives to solve problems themselves. This guidance should be like a safety net, present but only engaged when absolutely necessary. I've noticed in my practice that those who achieve the most significant personal growth are often those who have had mentors who understood this balance. Providing support without removing the challenge offering guidance without providing answers, being present without being intrusive. The development of resilience through challenge is not just about individual growth. It's about preparing our youth for the complex world they will inherit. In my observations, those who have faced and overcome meaningful challenges in their youth are better equipped to handle the uncertainties and rapid changes characteristic of our modern world. Consider the implications for innovation and progress. History shows us that the most significant advances often come from those who were willing to face and overcome substantial challenges. By preparing our youth to embrace rather than avoid challenges, we're not just developing their personal capabilities, we're investing in our collective future. Let me share one more observation from my years of study. The relationship between challenge and meaning is reciprocal. Meaningful challenges create stronger individuals, and stronger individuals are better equipped to find and create meaning in their lives and work. This cycle of growth and meaning making is what I've observed to be at the heart of human development and achievement. As we look to the future, we must ask ourselves, what kind of youth do we want to develop? Do we want a generation that shrinks from difficulty, that expects solutions to be provided, that fears failure more than it values growth? Or do we want a generation of resilient, capable individuals who understand that challenges are not obstacles to be avoided, but opportunities to be embraced? The answer, I believe, is clear. We need to create environments where meaningful challenges are not just present, but celebrated, where effort is valued as much as achievement, where failure is recognized not as an endpoint, but as a stepping stone to success, where young people are encouraged to stretch beyond their comfort zones, to test their limits, to discover their true capabilities. I've witnessed countless transformations in my work. Young people who initially feared challenges becoming individuals who actively seek them out, who understand that their growth and development are inextricably linked to their willingness to face and overcome difficulties. The impact of this approach extends far beyond individual development. When we create a culture that values meaningful challenges, we create a society that is more resilient, more innovative, more capable of addressing the complex problems we face. We create a future where our youth don't just survive but thrive, where they don't just accept the world as it is, but work to make it better. As I conclude, let me emphasize this final point. The challenges we provide our youth today will shape not just their individual futures, but our collective destiny. Every time we allow a young person to face and overcome a meaningful challenge, we're not just building their character, we're investing in our shared future. The choice before us is clear. We can continue down the path of overprotection, creating a generation ill-equipped for life's realities, or we can embrace the power of meaningful challenges to forge stronger, more capable individuals. The evidence from my years of research and observation points unequivocally to the latter as the path to both individual fulfillment and societal progress. Let us commit ourselves to this vision, not just for the sake of our youth, but for the future they will create. The challenges they face today will become the strengths they rely upon tomorrow. In this way, we don't just prepare them for the future, we enable them to create a better one. The examples I've encountered throughout my career continue to reinforce this fundamental truth. Let me share with you the story of a young woman I worked with who initially came to me paralyzed by anxiety about her future. She had been raised in an environment where every decision was made for her, every path carefully cleared of obstacles. The result? A brilliant mind trapped in a cage of fear and indecision. We must understand that this fear of challenge, this aversion to difficulty, is not innate, it's learned. And what is learned can be unlearned. Through careful exposure to progressively more demanding situations, I watched as this young woman transformed. She began with small challenges, making her own decisions about daily activities, facing minor social interactions she had previously avoided. Each success, no matter how small, became a building block for greater achievements. The transformation was remarkable but not unique. I've seen this pattern repeated countless times. When young people are given the opportunity to face challenges within a supportive framework, they invariably surprise themselves with their capabilities. This is what I call the challenge cascade. Success in facing one challenge leads to increased confidence in facing others. Consider the modern educational environment. In many cases, we've created systems that prioritize comfort over growth, safety over development. While physical safety is paramount, emotional and intellectual safety can become a barrier to growth. When we remove all possibility of failure, we simultaneously remove all possibility of genuine achievement. I recall working with an educational institution that decided to implement what they called challenge-based learning. Instead of traditional assignments, students were presented with real-world problems to solve. The initial resistance was significant from parents, from teachers, even from the students themselves. But as the program progressed, something remarkable happened. Students who had been disengaged in traditional learning became energized by the authentic challenges they faced. This brings us to another crucial point, the relationship between challenge and engagement. In my observations, young people are most engaged when they are working at the edge of their capabilities. This is what psychology terms the flow state, that perfect balance between skill and challenge, where time seems to disappear and learning becomes almost effortless. Let me share another case study that illustrates this principle. A group of teenagers was tasked with developing a solution to a local environmental problem. The challenge seemed overwhelming at first. They had to research, plan, coordinate with local authorities, and implement their solution. But with appropriate guidance and support, they not only succeeded, but exceeded all expectations. More importantly, they developed skills and confidence that transformed their approach to all future challenges. The key here is understanding the difference between productive stress and destructive stress. Productive stress motivates, energizes, and leads to growth. Destructive stress overwhelms and paralyzes. Our role as educators, parents, and mentors is to help young people distinguish between these types of stress and develop strategies to handle both. In my decades of observation, I've noted that young people who learn to embrace challenges develop what I call a growth orientation. They begin to seek out difficulties rather than avoid them, understanding that each challenge represents an opportunity for development. This orientation becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Each challenge met creates greater capacity for facing future challenges. Consider the impact of technology in this context. While technology has brought unprecedented convenience and comfort, it has also created new forms of challenge avoidance. The instant gratification and easy solutions provided by technology can make it more difficult for young people to develop persistence and problem-solving skills. However, I've worked with programs that use technology to create complex problem-solving scenarios, requiring young people to think critically, collaborate effectively, and persist through difficulties. The key is ensuring that these technological challenges maintain the essential elements of meaningful struggle, clear purpose, achievable goals, and visible progress. The development of resilience through challenge has implications far beyond individual achievement. In my research, I've observed that young people who are comfortable with challenges become more engaged citizens, more innovative thinkers, and more effective leaders. They develop what I call challenged literacy, the ability to read and respond to difficulties in ways that generate growth and progress. Let me share an observation about the relationship between challenge and creativity. In my work with young artists, musicians, and writers, I've consistently noted that their most significant creative breakthroughs come not during periods of comfort, but during times of struggle. The constraints and difficulties they face become catalysts for innovation, forcing them to think in new ways and explore unconventional solutions. This brings us to another crucial aspect of meaningful challenges, the role of failure. In my experience, young people who are allowed to fail in safe, supported environments develop a healthier relationship with failure. They come to see it not as a final judgment, but as feedback. Not as an end point, but as a stepping stone to success. I recall working with a young entrepreneur who had never experienced significant failure. His first business venture was unsuccessful, and initially he was devastated, but through guided reflection and support, he came to understand that this failure contained valuable lessons. His next venture was more successful precisely because of what he had learned from his failure. The question of challenge becomes particularly relevant when we consider the future our young people will face. The world is becoming increasingly complex, with problems that require not just knowledge, but wisdom, not just skills, but adaptability. By exposing our youth to meaningful challenges now, we prepare them to be problem solvers and innovators in a future we can barely imagine. Let me share another insight from my research: the importance of collective challenges. When young people face difficulties together, they develop not just individual resilience, but also social skills, empathy, and the ability to collaborate effectively. These collective challenges create bonds and understanding that extend far beyond the immediate task. Consider the impact of community service projects that present real challenges. Young people working together to address social issues develop not just practical skills, but also a sense of social responsibility and collective efficacy. They learn that challenges can be opportunities for bringing people together, for creating positive change in their community. The relationship between challenge and identity formation is another crucial aspect we must consider. In my observations, young people who face and overcome meaningful challenges develop a stronger sense of self. They begin to define themselves not by their circumstances. This brings us to what I call the challenge paradox. The fact that we grow strongest not when life is easiest, but when we are pushed to our limits. This understanding should inform how we structure opportunities for young people. We must resist the temptation to make everything easy and instead focus on making difficulties meaningful and manageable. Let me share one final observation about the long-term impact of challenge-oriented development. Young people who learn to embrace challenges don't just become more capable, they become more engaged with life itself. They develop what I call an active orientation toward life. seeing themselves not as passive recipients of circumstances, but as active shapers of their destiny. In my extensive clinical experience, I've observed another crucial dimension of this challenge paradigm, what I call the challenge multiplier effect. This occurs when young people who have successfully navigated one meaningful challenge find themselves exponentially more capable of facing subsequent challenges. Let me elaborate on this phenomenon with real-world applications I've witnessed. Consider the case of a young athlete I worked with who was struggling not just with physical performance, but with the mental aspects of competition. The conventional wisdom would have been to reduce the pressure, to make things easier. Instead, we carefully constructed a series of increasingly demanding challenges that encompassed both physical and mental elements. The transformation was remarkable, not just in athletic performance, but in academic achievement, social relationships, and personal confidence. This brings us to what I call the integrated challenge approach. Too often we compartmentalize challenges. Academic challenges stay in the classroom, physical challenges on the sports field, social challenges in personal relationships. But life doesn't work in such neat compartments. The most effective development comes when young people face challenges that cross these artificial boundaries. I've observed in my research that when young people engage with multidimensional challenges, they develop what I term adaptive resilience, the ability to apply lessons learned in one domain to challenges faced in another. This cross-pollination of problem-solving skills becomes increasingly valuable in our interconnected world. Let me share another case study that illustrates this principle. A group of young students was tasked with creating a sustainable garden in their urban community. This challenge required them to apply mathematical skills for planning, biological knowledge for plant selection, social skills for community engagement, and project management capabilities for implementation. The beauty of this challenge lay in its integration of multiple learning domains. The concept of productive discomfort is another crucial element we must understand. In my observations, there's a sweet spot of challenge intensity. Too little creates boredom and disengagement. Too much leads to overwhelming stress and shutdown. The art lies in finding and maintaining that optimal level of productive discomfort where growth occurs. Consider the metaphor of immune system development. We now understand that some exposure to pathogens is essential for developing a robust immune system. Similarly, exposure to appropriate challenges is essential for developing robust character and capability. This is what I call the psychological immunity principle. Controlled in my work with educational institutions, I've advocated for what I call challenge-based curriculum design. This approach integrates meaningful challenges into every aspect of education, ensuring that students are not just acquiring knowledge, but developing the capability to apply that knowledge in real-world situations. Let me share an observation about the relationship between challenge and motivation. In my research, I've consistently found that young people who are engaged in meaningful challenges demonstrate higher levels of intrinsic motivation. They don't need external rewards or punishments because the satisfaction of overcoming the challenge becomes its own reward. This brings us to another crucial concept, the challenge identity. Young people who regularly face and overcome meaningful challenges begin to incorporate this capability into their self-concept. They begin to see themselves as individuals who can handle difficulties, who can persist through struggles, who can find solutions to complex problems. Consider the implications for leadership development. In my observations, young people who have developed this challenge identity naturally emerge as leaders among their peers. They demonstrate what I call challenge confidence, the quiet assurance that comes from knowing one can handle difficult situations. The role of mentorship in this context cannot be overstated. However, effective mentorship in challenge situations requires a delicate balance. The mentor must be present enough to provide support and guidance, but distant enough to allow for genuine struggle and growth. This is what I call the proximate mentor model. Let me share another insight about the relationship between challenges and creativity. In my work with young innovators, I've observed that meaningful challenges often trigger what I call necessity creativity, the kind of innovative thinking that emerges when conventional solutions are inadequate. This type of creativity has led to some of the most significant breakthroughs in human history. The development of what I term challenge literacy, the ability to read, understand, and respond effectively to different types of challenges, becomes increasingly important as young people mature. This literacy includes understanding the nature of the challenge, assessing available resources, developing strategic approaches, and maintaining perspective during difficult periods. Consider the impact of this approach on emotional intelligence. Young people who regularly engage with meaningful challenges develop not just problem-solving skills, but also emotional regulation capabilities. They learn to manage frustration, maintain focus under pressure, and persist through difficulties, all crucial elements of emotional intelligence. Let me share an observation about the relationship between challenges and time perception. Young people engaged in meaningful challenges often report experiencing what psychologists call flow states, periods of intense focus where time seems to alter. These experiences contribute to what I call challenge engagement, a deep, almost meditative involvement with the task at hand. The development of what I term challenge flexibility, the ability to adapt approaches when initial strategies prove ineffective, is another crucial outcome of facing meaningful challenges. In my research, I've observed that this flexibility becomes increasingly valuable as challenges become more complex and unpredictable. Consider the impact on social development. When young people face challenges together, they develop what I call collective resilience, the ability to support and be supported by others during difficult times. This social dimension of challenge management becomes increasingly important in our interconnected world. The relationship between challenges and personal values is another crucial area of consideration. In my observations, young people who engage with meaningful challenges often develop stronger, more clearly defined personal value systems. The process of overcoming difficulties forces them to clarify what matters most to them. Let me share an insight about the role of reflection in challenge-based growth. It's not just the experience of facing challenges that creates development, but the conscious processing of these experiences. This is what I call the challenge reflection cycle. Experience, reflection, integration, and application. The impact of this approach extends far beyond individual development. Communities that embrace challenge-based youth development create what I call challenge cultures. Environments where growth and development are actively pursued rather than passively received. Consider the long-term implication for society. When we develop young people who are comfortable as challenges, who see difficulties as opportunities rather than obstacles, we create the foundation for a more resilient, innovative, and adaptive society. Let me share with you one final series of observations that underscore the critical nature of this approach to youth development. In my decades of research and clinical experience, I've identified what I call the challenge cascade effect, a phenomenon where successfully navigating one meaningful challenge creates a ripple effect throughout all aspects of a young person's life. Consider the story of a young man I worked with recently. Initially struggling with severe social anxiety, he was encouraged to take on a small leadership role in a community project. The challenge seemed almost insurmountable to him at first, but with proper support and guidance, he began to make progress. What was fascinating wasn't just his success in this specific challenge, but how this success transformed his approach to other areas of his life. This brings us to what I call the ultimate challenge paradox. The more challenges young people successfully navigate, the more they actively seek out new challenges. It's as if they develop an internal compass that naturally guides them toward growth opportunities rather than away from them. In my final years of research, I become increasingly convinced that this approach to youth development, this embrace of meaningful challenges, may be our most powerful tool for preparing the next generation for an increasingly complex world. The evidence I gathered suggests that young people who develop what I call challenge competency are better equipped to handle not just personal difficulties, but also to contribute to solving larger societal problems. Let me share one last case study that perfectly encapsulates everything we've discussed. A group of young people was tasked with developing solutions for elderly isolation in their community. The challenge seemed overwhelming at first: complex social issues, limited resources, multiple stakeholders. But watching these young people tackle this challenge was like watching a masterclass in problem solving and personal growth. They didn't just create a solution, they transformed themselves in the process. They developed empathy, leadership skills, project management capabilities, and most importantly, they developed what I call the challenge mindset, the ability to see difficulties not as barriers but as opportunities for innovation and growth. As we conclude this comprehensive examination of why young people need challenges, let us remember that we stand at a crucial crossroads. We can continue down the path of overprotection, of removing all obstacles from our youth's path, or we can embrace this proven approach of meaningful challenge integration. The choice we make will have profound implications, not just for individual development, but for the future of our society. When we develop young people who are challenge competent, we create the foundation for a more resilient, innovative, and adaptive world. Let this be our commitment: to create environments rich in meaningful challenges, to provide the support necessary for growth, and to maintain unwavering faith in our young people's capacity to rise to these challenges. In doing so, We don't just prepare them for the future. We enable them to create a better future for all of us. Thank you for your attention throughout this extensive exploration. May we all move forward with the courage and wisdom to implement these crucial insights, knowing that the challenges we provide today will shape the leaders of tomorrow. Remember, in the words I've often shared with my patients, the question is not whether young people should face challenges, but rather how we can ensure these challenges serve as stepping stones to their highest potential. Let this be our guiding principle as we work to develop stronger, more capable, more resilient young people through the power of meaningful challenges. Our journey together ends here, but the real work, the implementation of these principles, begins now. May we all have the wisdom to challenge, the patience to support, and the vision to see the extraordinary potential that lies within every young person when they're given the opportunity to face and overcome meaningful challenges. Thank you.